Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pens and the Bookmarks, an edutaining roundtable where both the readers and the writers weigh in on all things bookish. Who's right, who's wrong, who knows, and who cares? We'll be bringing our drinks, but leaving the drama. However, because today's topic is a little controversial, we're doing some fun, controversial facts for our intros. And I am A.E. Kincaid, and I don't care if we lose subscribers over this, but I am perfectly comfortable with pineapple on my pizza. Kimberly?
I am Kimberly Grimes, and I get road rage when people don't use blinkers.
I'm Whitney Hugh, and I'm perfectly fine with raisins in my trail mix.
I'm Megan J. Dahl, and I believe meat should never, ever be served in a ball. Ew.
No.
I'm Lou Becker, and I think pumpkin spice lattes are the worst.
Oh my gosh.
You went there.
I went there.
Oh, wow. If this is anything like the rest of the episode is going to be full of drama. I was lying. Lots of drama in this episode.
I'm going to replay that in October.
Do it. I stand by it.
Subscribers in October.
Sign me up for those government ones, but I will skip that pumpkin spice forever. Tastes like feet.
That's what I'm going to be thinking about all fall. Feet. Anyway, so this week we'll be chatting about, as you can imagine, a rather divisive topic: book reviews. Who are they for? Why is there such a controversy around them? And as a podcast of both readers and writers, we feel it's our duty to address this issue. But first, we would be remiss if we didn't say another big thank you to JL Vampa, who joined us last week. You can listen to that episode that is already up. And we wanted also to let you know that her standalone historical heist novel, Stolen Magic, comes out tomorrow. If you like heists, found family, second chance romance, and magic, you'll want to check it out. Although I will say I'm a little offended that a novel that's set in 1999 would be considered historical. But maybe that's just...
Speaking of controversial opinions, I do not feel like 1999 qualifies as a historical.
Just got me right in the heart there, JL.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Anyway, so that's some big news for her. But we, as a podcast, have some big news as well. Kimberly, do you want to tell everyone?
We are so excited that you can watch us on YouTube, but you can also listen to us via podcast now on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon Music. We're all over the place. So if you can't watch, you can listen when you're in the gym, on a walk, wherever. You can hear us giggle it up.
Yay for you. No, that's awesome. That is very exciting. And actually, Kimberly has some other news as well.
Yes. Recently, I released the title for my upcoming YA dark fantasy story. It's called Shade of Light. And I was going to call it A Shade of Light, but when you bring that down to ASOL, I was like, So I did not go with ASOL. I went with SOL, which also stands for something else, but that did not deter me from naming the book Shade of Light. So I'm really excited for this book to come out in October. It's book one of a trilogy series, and the cover release was coming on June 1st on Instagram, and Amy, A.E. Kincaid, just finished beta reading for me, so I'm super excited to get all the beta reader feedback.
I sure did. Literally, 18 minutes ago. I finished. So I haven't gotten her my feedback quite yet, except that I finished it in like 3 days. So that obviously says something, right? Yeah, so that's awesome. Congratulations, Kimberly.
Thank you.
A huge feat. And then you have another book coming out this year as well. Just everything's coming up, Kimberly.
I do, in June.
Awesome. Whitney, I don't think I checked in with you. Do you have news this week?
I don't think I have any news. My news is drowning at the end of the school year right now.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else can relate to me, but
Lots of stuff going on in the children world.
mhm.
I have some bookish news. My series was picked up by Phantom House Press, so it will be going away from Third and Dragon, which was my personal sort of publishing company because that's what we do. And Phantom House Press will be publishing it, so that's going to come out still in November, which I was really thankful for, and I'm very excited about that. So yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a good place for them. The sort of the overall mission of Phantom House fits with the kind of thing that Mel and Reg are, whatever that is. Anyway, speaking of books, what are we all reading? Who's up first? Kimberly, I think you're up first.
Okay, well, don't be too shocked. I'm still listening to Hellbent.
Mhm.
I haven't really gotten that far. I've just been super busy. But I am listening and I love this story. I just have very little time. And then I'm also halfway through The Spectacle of the Spring Queen, which is a novella from Liz Delton. And I've basically read all of her books, and she writes a lot of cozy fantasy. So it's always a warm, heartfelt story read and makes me feel, happy.
And she's going to be a guest.
Yes. So, yes, our next episode, we're going to have Liz on as a guest, and I'm really excited because she and I are going to Vegas together. And so I'm really excited to help her spread the word about her amazing stories.
Super cool.
That's fun.
Whitney, what giant number of books are you reading right now?
So I'm not actually reading all of the historical ones at the bottom all at the same time, but I just finished the first 3 of that series. It's the Carsington brothers romance, and Loretta Chase is amazing. If you like historical romance, or even if you're not sure if you like it, you want to try, I highly recommend starting with her, but I just finished the 3rd one of those, and they're hilarious and wonderful. I think A Vow So Bold and Deadly was on our last one, and I still haven't gotten to it, so congrats me. I thought maybe putting it back on here would make me read it this week. It's the last one in the trilogy. I need to be finished. I sort of got in a slump after the second one and needed to change to something else, which I'm sure, you series readers can relate. But Chain Gang All-Stars, I just finished this morning, and it's wild, you guys. It's dystopian. They're some kind of Hunger Games vibes, but it's set in like a futuristic America, which makes it a little scarier because it's like, hopefully not where we're going, but to put it in a recognizable America and not super far in the future made it kind of trippy, but it's really violent. It's but the world building is extremely well done. I've never read anything like it that's like so convincingly America in the future. So anyways, I actually just reviewed it today if you guys want to go read more about it on my Instagram. But I did just finish it. Highly recommend it. It just came out last week. So if you haven't seen much about it yet, that's why.
Awesome. That sounds cool. Let's see. Megan, what are you reading?
So I just finished reading Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. I really enjoyed this. It's a science fiction. It's a fast read. Mickey is an expendable, a crew member who's sent along and gets all of the suicidal or otherwise dangerous jobs. And if he dies, then they just reprint him as a clone. And so he is Mickey 7. And there's an accident, and they think he's dead. He's not. And then they print his Mickey 8, and and now there's 2. and that's a bad thing. So it's quite it's a fun read. It's a fast read. I read it in about half a day, and yeah, I would recommend that.
That sounds
I
cool.
see on the cover that it says it's going to Netflix. Is that what it says? Motion
Or
picture.
major
Not
motion
picture.
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
would be hanging out to watch that. I think that would be fun.
That sounds awesome. Now, you guys are messing up my TBR. So, because I already have things. For example, I just got my copy of Where the Woods End. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about this in a second. But I made Lou buy a book earlier this year. And I just got my copy. So now that's on my TBR. But now all these things.
I haven't read it yet, so we can
Oh, nice. Okay, great.
read it together.
Aha. But this one that I just finished up, How to Be Eaten. Did anyone else read this? No. This was really fascinating to me. It's these women who are famous for some sort of weird reasons, and they agree to do this new type of group therapy where they just go and they like tell their stories to each other. But in every case, they're sort of like fairy tale retelling, but like in a weird way. Like there's a sort of Red Riding Hood one, and there's like sort of I think a Cinderella one, and I don't know. Like they're all set sort of today in like an alt today. I don't know, and it's got like a twist at the end. I was not as excited about the twist as I was hoping to be, but I thought individually, like each of the stories was really good. And it was an interesting way of showing how I think women in particular can be, their stories can be out of their control when the media gets involved. If that makes sense. So I would recommend it. And then I just finished, as we mentioned before, Kimberly's Shade of Light. Not A Shade of Light, but Shade of Light. And I really enjoyed it. Very fast paced, exciting, lots of twists. So it was, I'll get her beta feedback later.
I think I skipped Lou. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I
Try not to be very offended. Pumpkin spice latte thing, isn't it?
That's right. That's what it is.
Awesome. Well, I am reading these two right now. So Castle of Dusk and Shadows by Rachel L. Shady and Leaves of Holly by Arnella Hobler. Castle of Dusk and Shadows is, she's just started this series. They are retellings of a bunch of classics. So this is actually a like fae spin on Pride and Prejudice. So I am probably about 6 chapters in, I think, right now. It's super interesting. So again, just a pretty typical like world building in terms of like what's happening in the mythos there with the fae, but the basic storyline, she's from a village near the woods. Her older sister is betrothed to the fae prince to save kind of the family because the father has died and they just have girls, and she's going to end up taking her sister's place and marrying this sort of, like angsty, emotionally cut off fae prince. So we're going to have essentially forced marriage in it, but then we're going to have some very like Elizabeth and Darcy vibes as they end up falling for each other. So I'm really enjoying it so far. It's my first book of hers. She's actually got a couple other series out, but it's the first one I've read by her, and it's amazing. And then Leaves of Holly is also a fae story. So apparently for me, spring is the time to read books about fae. Slightly different spin. The author is from Iceland. And so the book is actually set there, which is very cool. So definitely a lot more of that kind of like Nordic fae like vibe. But she is also from a village near the edge of the forest, as they often are. And she wanders off into the forest and is brought into the fae world. And something is wrong with the world. The humans are brought in because apparently they have some sort of fae link or fae ancestry. And they're brought in and really celebrated at this feast, but they're really brought in to serve. And so she finds herself in a position of essentially enslavement. And so it's kind of her journey to freedom, their journey to figure out what's wrong in the world. There's a little bit of romance that's coming down the pipeline here. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. Again, still pretty early in both of these, but really enjoying them both.
Maybe in the show notes or something, because I'm forgetting almost every single detail about the story I'm about to tell. But there is a woman I follow on Instagram, and she writes these little Book of Iceland not stories, books, like they're nonfiction. They're so fascinating. And she has a bit about like elves, because there was that, I think it was in Vogue. There was like an interview that mentioned that there was construction that had to stop in Iceland because they had to see if like there were fairies living there, and it like blew up that like the people of Iceland still believe in fairies. And she's like, well, no.
I have a sidebar on top of that. Has anybody watched Eurovision?
No, not yet.
There's like a little bit in Eurovision. It's Will Ferrell, Rachel McAdams. It's hilarious. Highly recommend for a lot of reasons. But it takes place or a bunch of it does, in Iceland. And there is one part where she, like, Rachel McAdams' character really wants a thing, and she is like bringing a tribute to the elves in this little, like, it's like on the side of a hillside. Yeah. Brings a little tribute to them and like whatever. So I obviously this movie is a comedy. It's not trying to say this is a real thing that happens in Iceland, but it's hilarious that you said that, because I was like, haha. So anyways, that was a unnecessary sidebar, but I love that movie and I've watched it 100 times. So please, somebody come DM me about your love of Eurovision, please.
Comment and join me in
Yes.
a Eurovision debate. I love it. Awesome. Well, shall we get into it?
Let's do it.
I'm a little nervous to get into it.
Yes, we've started out as friends. We shall see.
Until that pumpkin latte thing.
Oh yeah.
We're never gonna let you live that down.
That's okay. It's okay.
See, I feel the same way, but I would never say it out loud.
I'm going to own it.
I'm so glad the pineapple pizza thing, just like you guys are past that.
You're welcome for that.
Whatever. The pumpkin spice.
I am who I am.
That's right. So first, I think it's important to sort of establish what are book reviews? What is their purpose, and what purpose do they serve for the audience, for readers versus authors? So Lou or Whitney, do either of you want to take this? Like, what is the purpose of a book review for a reader?
You start and I'll chime in.
Okay. I mean, I think honestly, it's a couple different things. So I think as a reader in the book community, it kind of plays a couple different roles. So I think of like how often I'm interacting with authors, right? And so I'm getting books or giving books. So it's, for me, it's a sense of feedback. It's a sense of camaraderie there. It's a sense of, okay, can I recommend, or how can I recommend a book to the people who are coming to my account to see what I'm reading, or to see what I thought of a book that they were interested in. So I think, and on one hand, it's a place for me to reflect. When I'm on Goodreads, I think it's going to be a little more reflective there, the sense of these are things I wanted to remember, and these are things that I really enjoyed in the story, or those kinds of things. So I think for me, it's a place to kind of highlight these are aspects I liked or maybe didn't work for me. These are things like, if you are like these elements of a book, like this is a book for you to check out. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of a place for me to kind of process and record some of those things. But again, also working directly with authors, sometimes it's a way to help share their story. It's a way to, at some level, give them feedback. Obviously not like beta reading, not the same there, but a way to kind of give them some perspective there as well. So yeah.
Yeah, the part about the author thing that I will just say a little more about is, until I joined the Bookstagram community, I didn't realize how many independent authors there were that are not with a huge publishing house, that are, you know, they want to make this their livelihood and they want their stories to be out in the world for the people that need them. And until you have people who are willing to review and sort of go out on a limb and tell other people about this book they've never heard of, like there has to be a group of people that's willing to do that. And so that's a lot of what reviewing is too, is spreading the word, and hopefully a good word. Yeah. I try to make it a good word, even if it's not my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I try to have some good things that I say, because it might be Megan's cup of tea, or it might be Kimberly's cup of tea, even if it's not mine. But another thing that I like in reading reviews, and that I try to do in writing my own reviews, is try to pinpoint at least two things that are like concrete, like this has the wittiest banter, or the world building is exquisite, or, you know, something like that, that people are like, oh, that's a hook for me.
Right.
So somebody can say, oh, I don't like really dense fantasy, but if I said this is approachable fantasy, it's like, that could be something that would appeal to even a different crowd of people. So I enjoy trying to have a little nugget that's specific enough to respond.
That's a great point. And I'm actually going to put how it affects authors over to Kimberly and Megan. But I do want to say, I always appreciate as an author when somebody does that in a review, because there's only so much you can say yourself. Right.
Well, and you probably you have either the book jacket or the back of the book blurb that you've tried so hard. You're like, all of the things that I think are important are in these
already there
sentences or whatever. And so somebody having a fresh, you know, thought like, oh, my favorite part was this. And you're like, I didn't even remember I did that.
Right. Also has happened. So that's kind of what book reviews are for our readers. Kimberly or Megan, or Kimberly and Megan, can you explain how reviews affect authors? Because it's a little bit different coming at the author side. Reviews are a little bit different.
Yeah. So, I mean, for reviews for an author, they're very important about getting the word out about your book, especially in these days of digital retailers. So Amazon, for example, once an author has about 50 reviews, then Amazon will kick in some marketing, and that can be a big deal for authors. So leaving reviews is important, and you know, and it gives us feedback to our work. Is this is this landing with people? Oh, and it's very exciting as an author to read somebody who's talked about their favorite part or something like that. Then you can start to see, you know, that feels really good. It is really nice when reviewers remember that there's a human on the other end of the book. So remember that, you know, there's quite a few things there. Like some reviewers are very personal with their attacks. And those are ones that authors should just ignore. In my opinion, I feel like if it's constructive criticism and you see a lot of it, then you can, you know, not address it. Do not talk back to do not talk back to your reviewers, but take it on board. In terms of criticism, it's because, you know, as authors, we do have to learn how to separate ourselves from our work, because our reviewers are not reviewing us personally. It's not about us. It's about this piece of work.
Mhm.
If it is about us, that's when you should not ignore that review entirely.
Should not listen to those people.
And this is one of the, what you just said, Megan, actually is one of the reasons why we thought we should do this episode, because there have been a few back and forths between authors and readers, either a reader that has posted a review and the author has decided to respond, or an author coming out and saying like, hey, I don't know if if it wasn't your cup of tea, maybe you shouldn't have given it a 1-star review. And then readers being like, I can give what I want. These are for other readers. So that's actually why we're talking about this today, because there is this sort of back and forth. But Kimberly, is there anything else you would like to add from the author side?
I think for me, when I first started getting reviews, I was really excited and I was reading them and reading them and reading them. And yeah, like Megan said, you don't want to take it personal, but sometimes you just can't help it. And so I think I turned that around into being more like, how can I use this as constructive feedback? And so that's what I started looking at as, because there's good ones, there's bad ones, and then there's trolls. And then there's just, so after a while, I just stopped reading them. But I did use a lot of the feedback in growing my writing craft. So it definitely helps. Getting reviews is a whole other side of the author marketing strategy. It's hard because we want to get reviews, but at the same time, we don't want to push ourselves onto readers. And there's a lot that goes into making those connections, holding those connections, keeping those connections, just to get that review. So, and we're so authors, the majority of them are very appreciative of their following and their reviewers. But yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's Whitney, yeah.
I had a question. I was going to ask Megan, and you might not even know. But you were talking about Amazon kicking money once you hit a certain number of reviews. Do you have to have bought the book on Amazon to review it on Amazon? Why all of you know this? God.
Go Amazon
doing this, and I'm
Amazon. They won't let you review a book for a family or friend member if that author has mailed you something. Like Amazon knows your friends and they'll block your review.
Yeah. But if it's just, if you just bought it somewhere else and read it, you can review it on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say too, and this isn't like completely connected, but it kind of is. And like just a complication of that middle ground stuff. I was thinking even in that kind of what you were saying, Kimberly, and you as well, Megan, like talking about that relationship between authors and reviewers. I think especially in the world of social media, right, as a bookstagrammer. So I get lots of authors asking, do you want to read this book and review it for me? And I think one of the hardest reviews I ever had to do was for a situation like that, where I had an author send me a book and the story was amazing and the editing was abysmal. And it was like a 400-page fantasy book, right? And I gutted out the whole 400 pages. And honestly, the story was worth it, but I had to sit down and say like, okay, what is the tension and how do I review this? Like how do I rate this or recommend this to people? Like if I come back and say this was an awesome story and then, a bunch of my readers go buy this book and then they go, what are you doing? Right. That doesn't help anybody. But if I come back and I just give that, like slam this in a review, then that doesn't help him either.
Right.
And so I don't know if it's the right thing or the wrong thing but I wound up giving it, I think I ended up giving it like 4 stars and reviewing the story and then putting a caveat at the end to say, like, it would be remiss if I didn't mention that the editing in this story was so rough that it kept taking me out of the story. And I think it's worth this, like the story to fight through that, but I can't recommend it to you without mentioning. And he was very gracious and came back and was like super appreciative of the feedback as he was continuing in the series. But just like, again, that I don't know, it just feels like it's like a weird intermediary place to be reviewing a book
It's
sometime.
a very tough situation. And you have to be honest, because otherwise it's not helpful. And,
Right,
and
anybody.
your readers won't trust your reviews. And then
Yeah, and then there's no point really to doing it except
yes, exactly.
Which I think is so sometimes I think that readers who sign up for book tours, I know there's like a subset of readers who don't trust those reviews because they assume that they're going to be better than they necessarily are because this person has signed up for a tour, and the purpose of the tour is to promote the author and the book. And yeah, so it's like this whole many layered thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's
I have
a
a
fine
question.
balance between, knowing that there's a human on the other end, and then not wanting to hurt that human's feelings. So, how do you balance that line as a reviewer?
Kimberly, you had a question?
It's something very similar to what Megan just said. Like, how often do you say no, or how often do you are you comfortable enough to say, no, this isn't my cup of tea?
Sure. I mean, I think, I know, Minnie, you can answer this too. I think when I get requests, I always check out the book first and look through and see if it's even a type of book that I would be super interested in. And if it's not, then I'm always going to say no. Or if I'm backlogged on several others that I need to be reviewing, then I'm going to say no. So I've done that a couple times recently. Would love to read this one day, but now is not that day. But I don't know. I think even Amy, like, I think it's sort of disappointing to think about people not trusting book tours in that way, because I know, like, I work with a friend here who puts on book tours for indie authors. And she always puts in her emails, if you've signed up to review, if you can't rate this 4 stars or above, then please don't do the review. Just do a promo, right? Just share the cover, share the book blurb, and leave it alone. And then review it like as you want after the tour is over. But so I'm like, so for me, that's frustrating, because I've had several books there that I've started and said, hey, I know I'm signed up to do a review, but I can absolutely not give this book 4 stars. So I'm just going to switch over. And then I can share it and share the book blurb. And maybe it's for people that aren't me.
Right.
But I'm not having to like fudge a review or try to come up with a better rating there. So I mean, I've been reviewing with her now for a couple of years. And I've probably only done that like 3 times. For a book that I've signed up for. I say no to tours all the time. But of books that I like requested to review, it's not more than a handful of times at the most.
Lou and Whitney, do you have like sometimes on Instagram, you'll see somebody put up a graphic like, this is what 5 stars means to me, and this is what 4 stars means to me, and this is what 3. Do you guys have a specific system for how you rate books? And also, is there a star threshold at which you're like, I don't really need to check this out? The average star is 2 stars or something like that when you're looking through books.
So this is my unpopular opinion. I hate star ratings. Sorry. So I try to just not have to. I will write the most thoughtful review and say, here's the things that I liked, here's the things that I didn't. I highly recommend it. Or I'll say, if you like this type of book, I recommend it. Sometimes I'm like, hi, you want approachable sci-fi? You've never read sci-fi? This is a good one to start with, and that kind of thing. Sometimes, especially if it's an indie author or an up-and-coming author, if I don't like it, I'll just leave it. I'll just be like, I'll put it on I read this book. Here it is, and I'll try to write a sentence about it, but I won't do a post review if I didn't love it. But I have had several conversations with friends recently. It's like, the more I read, the more I know what I'm going to like and what I'm not going to like.
Yeah.
And I just won't read it if I don't think I'm going to like it, because it's not fun for me. That takes all the joy out of reading, to try to slog through something I don't like. And that doesn't count like me trying to educate myself about a topic or whatever. Like, I'm not a nonfiction reader. Sometimes I will slog through nonfiction I love, but that's not what we're talking about. But I do star ratings on my Storygraph and my Goodreads, and now my Amazon reviews. You're welcome. I do star ratings. I do not do the thing where people are like 3.25 stars. I'm like, can we just?
I don't even understand that.
What?
That doesn't even work on every platform, anyways. It's like just is it 3 or is it 4? But yeah, if I have like, unless I have some reason to like abysmally like hate a book, which never for me is the answer to that. But if I had a reason and I really had to post a 1-star review, I guess I would do it. But I don't know. The more I read, the more I'm like, I pick 4 and 5 stars for myself
Often.
So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but
So it sounds like Whitney picks her books, and then Lou is a combination of picking and then being approached.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I recently got a couple of like times where the author has reached out to me. So maybe next time I will have more information on this. I think I have a smaller account than you have, and I don't get authors reaching out to me very much. I just got on the Libro FM one where I'm getting audio arcs, which I love. But I, for the most part, am not getting a book before everybody else gets it. You know what I mean? And I will buy indie authors' books and then try to like blast them. But usually it's because I already know that I like the author. I've read something else by them and whatever. So,
yeah. So I do use star ratings, but mostly only on like Goodreads or Amazon or places like that. On my book account, I used to, and I'm kind of where Whitney is there, where I'm just like, I don't have there's not a lot of point to it in that space. So yeah, I'm going to tell you about the book. I'm going to tell you what I liked or didn't like. I'm going to tell you who I think would be a good audience for the story. But I'm not going to rate it there. And I'm, again, kind of similar here. We're the same personality type. You're going to pick up on this. My star rating is washy. I don't have like I love those infographics. I'm like maybe one day I will aspire to make an infographic, but I would have to like have something beyond like in my heart. This is what I felt like this book deserved. But I don't. Like that's it. Like that's what I got. I felt this was a 4-star book. But I mean like roughly like a 5-star book is a book I loved. Right. And maybe I loved the world. Maybe I loved the characters. Maybe I just got caught up in the story, or I've been thinking about it for days, or like it could be any number of reasons that I loved the book. But that's a 5. A 4 is a book that I felt, I mean, pretty close to that, but that it was like, for whatever reason, just not quite as like the emotion isn't quite as strong. I think a 3-star book for me is usually a book that like, it's fine. Like I liked it, or it was okay for me. It may not have been like the best thing I've ever read, and I probably wouldn't like recommend it to people, but I also wouldn't tell people not to read it. So like for me, a 3 is like, that's like a 70, like, like a 3 for me is, yeah, maybe you should try that, but also not, I'm going to be like, hey, everybody read this book.
Right.
and then goodness, 2-star would have to be bad. I mean, and it would have to probably be bad on a lot of levels. It would probably have to be a book that for whatever reason I did gut through. I'm trying to think of if I have in the last 18 months given a book a 2 stars, and I don't think I have. And then I don't think I've ever given a book 1 star. I don't know. I don't see a lot of point in reading a book that you're hating that much. I'm with you, Whit. If I have a book like that I like am hating, like even on Goodreads, sometimes I'll record that I've read a book and I'll write just a short blip and say, hey, I DNF'd this percentage through. It wasn't working for me because of this. But maybe but if you like this type of story, like give it a try. And so even there, I'm not going to give it a 1 star because more often than not, it's like, this is not a story that like I thought it was going to be something that I could engage with, and I just am not. And I don't know. More often than not, I feel like that has more to do with me than it does to do with the book itself. So
I have a question for the authors. Sorry, I cut you off. I didn't mean to.
You're good.
How do y'all feel about somebody DNFing and still giving a star rating? Because that makes me irate.
So much.
I'm like, if you did not finish, you may not rate.
You do not get
I'm a serial book finisher. I find it very hard to put things down once I've committed, which is maybe because I don't commit to things unless I think I'm going to like them. But I'm just like, how can you be like, oh, I got 30% in DNF, 1 star. I'm like, yes, suck, right?
Yeah, no, that's you. You lost your privileges when you didn't finish the book.
That is how I feel on the inside.
In my heart of hearts.
But I will say that, like, so the other side of the coin here is that, like, a person reviews a book to, like, well, I mean, supposedly a person reviews a book so that, like, their opinion might be able to affect another person's decision as to whether they buy a book. It's hard if I guess if I ate some of a cookie and I hated it, like, I guess to some extent, like, I'll probably hate the rest of the cookie. It's a little different though, because, like, it's almost like the cookie could potentially change flavors as you eat the book. But yeah, it is. It's a frustrating experience for sure to be like, but you didn't read it, so.
I do appreciate when people disclose that they didn't finish it.
Yeah,
because
please tell us.
That's always good information too, because if you had a high percentage of people who are not finishing it, then you've got like a gap somewhere that's where people are dropping off.
I'll allow it.
Then you're not holding attention.
The content of reviews, even like negative reviews, can be quite helpful. Like, I have my, like, favorite bad review is 2.5 stars rounded up to 3. Like, that's all it says. And which is, like, I don't know, it made me laugh when I read it. But in some ways, I really wish this person had written a little more, because, like, was there anything about the book that I have the power to change, or was it that this book wasn't for you? So that can be tough as well.
I would be just as interested in what happened that made him round up to 3.
3?
Like
why not round down?
Yeah, whose entrance in the last quarter of the story made you go, oh, I like that one?
But I will never know unless this person seeks out this podcast.
Unless they're listening. If that was you, please give Amy some feedback.
Okay, I hope they will.
What tilted it? What could have gotten it up to the?
I don't know. But I mean, thank you for the extra half a star. I do appreciate that.
Thank you for not running.
We'll take it.
I think DNFs. I think, if you're gonna have a do not finish, I mean, it's again, it's your opinion. The reviewer, if they want to share it. But rating it, I don't know. I did not know that you had the option not to star rate it, and you can write a review on Goodreads or Amazon. That is news to me.
I don't know if you can on Amazon. I know you can on Goodreads.
I will say one situation in which a DNF, I think, is fully, like, fine to write a review as well, and that is if the content is offensive in some way. If the material is very poorly presented, that would, that'd be one thing.
Yeah, that's fair, because that review serves as a trigger warning for someone else, which is
exactly
important.
Well, and it's totally different from, I think, your analogy, Amy. Like, I didn't like the cookie. Like, this is not a flavor issue. This is like, this cookie is toxic.
Yes.
No one should eat it.
This cookie made me sick.
But if you just read the sample on the retailer, don't review it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or when books that have not come out yet have thousands and thousands of 5-star or 1-star because, I didn't like the last book the author read, so I'm going to blast them right here.
Right.
Or
Or I
I'm
loved it, so
really
obviously this is going to be perfect.
Yeah, I'm excited about the sequel. I'm going to just get on Goodreads and give it 5 stars. Like, you don't even have that in your hand yet. And even if some of you do, thousands of you do not.
Thousands of you certainly do not.
I know. I think I posted Doors of Stone last night. I was like, how is there 4,000 reviews? This is a book that doesn't exist. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. It's so funny. Like, why? And that's the other, that's like another piece of the review puzzle is that like sometimes people are reviewing books they didn't read at all.
Even a little.
I looked at the upcoming Martha Wells, the next Murderbot in episode. Okay, that's the word I was looking for. And it hasn't come out yet. It comes out in November. And there was reviews. There were a bunch of 5-star reviews like that. And then there were some 1-star reviews to counter the 1-star reviews. It counts the 5-star reviews for a book that doesn't exist. It's just,
oh my
Feel
goodness.
obligated to bring balance to the force. That's weird.
So
I also saw
I have
a
to
review for someone who could not open a file. Once
Oh, I think,
the
yeah.
book file didn't work, so they gave it a 1-star. And I was like, that is not the author's fault. You bought this on Amazon. So
I did get a lot of 1 and 2 stars for my book because I had listed it on NetGalley, and NetGalley reviewers, I think half the time maybe they do, they don't realize which book they're requesting. They just request it all. And since it was my first time on NetGalley, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got 300 people wanting to read my book. And I was just like, yes. And lesson learned, do not say yes to everyone. Yes.
Okay, that's
so,
interesting.
Yeah, NetGalley is definitely I mean, I plan on doing it again, but going in knowing what to expect and you have to do your research. You just can't click. Like I contacted the lady who was hosting the co-op and I'm like, what is going on? Why am I not getting, they're just saying that's not what they thought it was. And I'm like, they don't know. They just go in and say, yes, I want to read it. They see your cover and yes. And I'm like, oh. So the good thing is I got like 65, 70 reviews from it, but they're a mismatch of good and not good and DNFs. And I was just like, oh, learning experience.
Have you heard of book sirens? Because I feel like that you have to read what it's about before you can say yes to it as the reviewer. So you might want to look into that.
Book siren?
Yeah.
They're great.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I quit NetGalley almost as soon as I started, though.
You're here.
I was like, oh, this is what we do over at Bookstagram.
We may be a bad sampling of readers to ask about reviewing.
I know you guys are
sorry.
so
like, we're just sort of nice and also try to be constructive.
I feel like there are some Bookstagrammers that get off on scathing reviews, though.
They do.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think so that's where I started a monthly feature at the beginning of this year. And I missed it in March. Sorry. But where I'm featuring like books that are literally on my TBR shelf, like sitting on my physical shelf. And I don't identify them at first, but I pull a 1-star review from each of those. And then people vote, and then I'll read that book. But before I read and review it myself, I'll also do like a follow-up where I come back and I share what each book was, and then their actual average Goodreads review rating, which is always obscenely higher than 1 star. Like those people are usually outliers, but but they feel really strongly about it. Like their position is outliers. And I don't know. I feel like consistently I read 1-star reviews and don't understand why people write them, except to maybe make themselves feel better about themselves. I feel like I've started using it that way. I'm like, somebody ought to get something good out of it so we can all laugh at how ridiculous this is. And then
it's my favorite activity of the month. love it.
Yeah,
feel
I
like
love it. I love when you do that.
the 1-star
Okay.
review is a really good symbol to know that you're reaching a broad audience.
Right.
You know, that you're actually getting enough, discovery and because now the people who do weird reviews are I mean, it's maybe I shouldn't say weird reviews, like
angry reviewers.
Because a lot of 1-star reviews often are a little bit, because I don't make my judgments on a book based on the 1-star reviews of whether I'm going to read it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the 2s and 3s, I'll look at the 2s and 3s and if there's anything constructive in there, and then that's what I would, and I look at the 5s, obviously. But
this is a great topic to be on, because we actually got 2 questions. I polled the audience to see if there were any questions they wanted us to discuss on this, and there were 2. One was our thoughts on the Amazon's rating/review system, which I feel like we have been harping on a bit. Don't think anyone's going to wonder what we feel about that. And the other one is, have you ever read a bad review that made you want to read the book? And I have seen comments like that on yours, Lou, where people are like, you should read this one because I read this review and it was terrible, but it makes me want to know.
Now I want to read the book. I was going to say about once a month.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times, like, that's why I sometimes look at those 2 and 3-star reviews, because it'll say like their criticism is something. I'm like, well, I don't care about that. Okay, I'm good.
Right. Yes.
Click buy, and but I think this is Sasha Black's story about the 1-star review, but somebody gave her a 1-star review for one of her nonfiction books that said, yeah, if Deadpool was a professor. And so,
That's what we call her. That's what we call her in the Rebel group now.
Professor
She's
Deadpool.
Professor Deadpool.
So I mean, that's the ultimate, like, oh wait, I want that. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Didn't you mean 5? Like, that's what it is.
I don't understand the way the scale works.
So is there a threshold anybody can answer? Is there like a star threshold that you're kind of like, somebody's recommended a book to you, or you've heard that there's a book coming out and you're thinking about reading it, and then when you go on Amazon or Goodreads or whatever, if it's got an X number of average stars, is there anything that you are like, I got a long TBR already of better rated books, I'm not really going to look into this? Is there anything like that, or no?
For me, if I saw, like, if it's below 3, then I might be like, oh, maybe, I don't know. But I base most of my judgment goes on the sample. I read the sample. Is it my cup of tea? Because I'm very picky. So, and I know what I like. So I just go there.
Anybody else?
I love going into a book blind. Like, not like totally like just grabbing it off the shelf based on the cover necessarily, but if I've had a friend, or especially multiple friends, either say that it's good or say that they think I would like it, I wouldn't bother even checking the Goodreads rating. I would just say okay. But I care less about the million people who I don't know and more about the one person that I do know and their opinion. Or I trusted a reviewer on Bookstagram or something, somebody I've followed for a long time.
Right. So if Lou says this is a middle grade book that I enjoy, like if she says I enjoyed it, like I know that's gone on my TBR, like automatically. Like that's, you are the standard by which I rate middle grade things I haven't read. But yeah,
I don't know when the last time I bought a book because of the reviews.
I can't think.
Yeah.
So I will say, my husband bought Wool by Hugh Howey because he had gone on to buy a different book, and so terrible. The reviews were like, "Don't buy this book. Go buy Wool by Hugh Howey." Which now, as an author, I'm like, oh, horrified for this poor person. I don't know what the original book was, but like, I was like, wow,
Oh no.
okay, that's
And he
that's
did.
terrible.
He
And he
did.
did.
fully
Yeah, he
right.
did. Yeah, and he did. And I'm so glad he did, because it's like oh my gosh, I love that book so much. And I wouldn't have read it if he didn't read it. And just like, you know, a lot of dominoes have fallen since those people, it was more than one person saying like, don't read this one, read Wool. So hopefully nobody does that to my books. Who knows though? Someday. Yeah. So just I know we're a little tight on time, but so Kimberly and Megan, do you have any kind of rating system, or has your opinion on ratings changed at all since you put your own work out into the universe?
So I try and review more now. I pretty much kept things to myself. Unless I really love something, I might review it back then. But most of it, I would tell people about it, but I wouldn't necessarily review it in a public setting. But since I've been an author and I see how important reviews are to others, then I am more likely to leave a review, and I make a point of leaving reviews on the books that I love, on the books that stood out to me. I don't leave reviews I don't leave bad reviews, because I'm very picky, and my I know that I am pickier than the average person when it comes to a book. So I'm not going to, my opinion is not going to be this, the same necessarily. And I don't want to ruin somebody's chance of reading something that they just loved. And also I don't like to crush other authors. So I'm more inclined to leave reviews for books that I loved, books that are going to stick with me, and or books that had really good some piece that was really special about them that stuck with me.
Yeah. How about you, Kimberly?
Since I've published, I have stopped writing reviews so much, especially for, well, just in general, even if it's an author I don't know. I just feel like there's a different level of critiquing, reviewing now as an author. And I feel like if I say something, that will come back to me. And that's my I have this fear of, if I say something, then they're going to find me and they're going to say something to one of my books. So I'm just like, I don't write reviews anymore. I do star ratings, and even star ratings are really hard for me because I'm like Lou, 5 stars, I really have to love that book. And I feel like my average is 4 stars. Like if I read a good book, I'm normally going to just give a 4-star, because I feel like if you hand out 5 stars all the time, it loses its value. And so I try to stick with 4 stars, 3 stars. I won't review anything or rate anything under 3 stars. I just won't do anything. I mean, I'll probably ghost the author. So
Pretend like you never got the request.
yeah, just be like, sorry. But yeah, so I'm just very like, I don't want, like Megan said, I don't want to hurt people's feelings or point things out. I mean, I recently read a story that was great as an indie author. I think it's an indie author. I really enjoyed the story, but there was head hopping, and I cannot do head hop. Like my brain is just like, whoa, who's talking now? And so I have a trouble with head hopping, but I also have a trouble with, I can't talk right now, telling an author, like I can't message that person and be like, hey, you do some head hopping. So I just, go about life.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly that I don't want to give criticism unless it's asked for. So if you want constructive criticism from me, I will give you encouraging constructive criticism. But not unless you ask for it, because
Yeah, that's if they did ask for it, I probably would have. But you're right. I'd just be like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. On the Clifton strengths, I'm really high maximizer, so you know.
What were you saying, Whitney?
I was just gonna say it's amazing sometimes how many books get past beta reading and past editors and past so many layers of rewrites and edits and whatever, and they still have like confusing head hopping or like a plot thing that's like, wait, how did we even get here? I don't know. And I mean, I've never tried to find an editor or tried to deduce which one is the right one. But sometimes it's like, oh, bummer. This, you know, like your one where the editing was bad, Lou. It's like, man, this would have been really good with somebody else helping him out, you know?
Right. Yeah, he hired an editing firm. It was credited in the front of the book.
Yeah.
But he spent money on it.
Oh,
And
man.
it was brutal. I felt horrible. But yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned head hopping, because the last time I gave a review that had like something more critical to it, usually what I try to do is I just try to find, unlike you, Whitney, I basically try to find like a couple of things that I thought would appeal to people who might want to read that book. And those are the things I kind of focus on that I enjoyed. The last time I gave a critical review, which was before I was an author, and I have stopped doing this, it had to do with head hopping. I was like, I can't, it's driving me crazy. However, I have read subsequent books in that series, and every book, it bothers me less and less. I don't know if it's done better or if I'm just like, I know to expect it or what, but yeah, it doesn't bother me in that series as much. However, I am never going to seek out a book that has head hopping.
So I read an ARC book for an author once, and I don't read historical romance. And supposedly head hopping is a normal thing in historical romance. This is what the author had told me. And because I had said, you've got some head hopping. And they were like, oh, yeah, that's normal in historical romance.
Whitney?
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's normal in any book.
I feel like there's a break where you know that you've transitioned from his head to her in her monologue.
Between chapters. Or at least a little,
or at least like a space down that's further than the other space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, it shouldn't be every other paragraph?
No.
Hey.
Okay, so
yeah,
another topic.
DM me about that.
Yeah, because on top of what Whitney just said, you know, like for self-publishing authors, I've met very, very many that skip a lot of the stages in publishing, and it shows sometimes, you know.
And honestly, we get it, because this is an expensive endeavor.
Holy sugar honey iced tea it is.
But also, like, you want the best thing that you can put out in the world to like represent what you can do, but you know, it doesn't always work out. Like with Lou's person she was talking about earlier, did the right things, and it just wasn't the right people, I guess.
And it's kind of a, you know, because some people won't care. Some people will read this story and they won't care about any of that.
Right.
Whereas for me, it's a total deal breaker. Like, just as if I find any of that in the first half of the book, I'm not finishing it, because I can't. But yeah, and it just depends, like, and it depends, I think, on the author. If you don't personally care about it, and you don't care that that's going to show up in your review sometimes, Godspeed, you know, like, you know, save your money. But yeah, but if it is going to bother you, then save your money. Don't skip the steps.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Well, I think we all knew this one was going to be a little bit of a longer one, but I think we had a pretty good discussion. To everyone who's listening, we would love to hear from you what your thoughts are on book reviews. If you agree, disagree, what we had to say. Did your perspective shift at all, knowing some of the things you learned during today's episode? So let us know in the comments or send us a DM or something like that. And that is it for us today. I am Amy from the Pens and the Bookmarks, and we'll see you next time.
And don't forget to watch us on Spotify and iTunes and
So
Amazon
true.
Music. Oh, I have to stop it. Hold on. Wait. There we go. Okay.